All right, welcome back to another episode of Growth Unlock. Joining us today is Bandholz, the founder and face of Beardbrand, the men's grooming company that has redefined what it means to keep on growing. Welcome to the podcast, Eric.
What is going on, man? How's it going?
It's amazing. Yeah, how about yourself?
Yeah, doing well over here in Europe with you, hanging out, enjoying the beautiful 70-degree weather. And yeah, excited to talk about some growth.
Amazing. Yeah, finally we have a little bit of summer weather here. So you basically started as a financial advisor, right? And ended up creating the Beardbrand, building it from a simple blog into a seven-figure business, bootstrapping pretty much every step of the way, and creating a community that's redefining men's grooming. You've been on Shark Tank, you have millions of YouTube views, and you help change how people see beards and men's self-care, right? So we're excited to learn more about your journey and growth, and hopefully learn a bit that we can implement ourselves and that our listeners, other brand builders can implement themselves. So starting off, how did you get around from advising in finance to building a brand in the first place?
Yeah, I would almost say that my time as a financial advisor was almost more of like a side quest than it was like who I was as an individual. Before that, I was kind of like a journeyman salesperson. So I worked in sales for Cisco Systems, selling routers, a commercial printing company. And then I tried I dipped my toe into entrepreneurship, was an executive recruiter with my dad's business, which was 2008 when everyone was firing, was not successful. I had my first e-commerce business was a vinyl wall graphic business that I think I had 2 sales, and that never got off. And then eventually, what do they say when the rubber meets the road? I had to get a job. So I've always enjoyed finance. Finance is something I find interesting. I enjoy investing. So I thought that being a financial advisor might be something that I found interesting. So I worked there and did that for a couple of years. But I just, I don't know who works with a financial advisor, but it's basically you have to train your mind to look at people based on what you perceive their net worth to be, because your compensation and your livelihood is really based on the amount of assets they have. And to me, that was just, I felt creepy. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to prospect everyone. I didn't want to, I wanted to live a normal life where I didn't have to be some salesperson 24/7. So financial advising was not the right fit for me. And I was always entrepreneurial. So I always had these ideas. I have like a little notebook and I'm just like, this is an idea. This is an idea. Some of them are like really, really dumb. Like, a helmet for police officers that have lights on the front and back of them. So people can, for motorcycle cops, all sorts of like weird things. And so basically what happened is I quit working there. I grew my beard out and I tried let's call it a marketing company or a graphic design company, website building company. And it was in that process of growing my beard out and kind of staying in the business community that I realized there was this community of people that didn't fit the traditional stereotype of a bearded guy, in 2011, which was typically they thought of like ZZ Top or Duck Dynasty, Grizzly Adams, kind of like musicians. And all those are like super cool dudes, but they're not me. Like these hands were made for keyboards. And I realized there's a group of guys that didn't fit that traditional stereotype. So I just wanted to give them the tools. So like I would write blog articles, like how to convince your wife that you're growing your beard, or how to convince your boss how to get away with growing a beard at work in environments that beards were not acceptable at the time. So that was kind of like the little intro into the space. And then eventually I was able to partner up with my now business partners, Jeremy and Lindsay, convince them to join the company. And we converted kind of like the content of Beardbrand into the business of Beardbrand, which is selling men's grooming products.
Awesome. It's a very interesting story. And pretty much we discussed before on our call that you wanted to maintain this brand as a lifestyle business, right? Like you want to have that freedom, you want to be able to dictate your day and dictate what you do. How does that operate in like a day-to-day? Because there's many people who want to build something like that, but it takes a lot of time, right? So how does this shape your decision-making across your process and across the process of scaling the brand and overall growth?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. In that same book that I wrote all my ideas in, on the first page is like, what are my passions in life? Like, what drives me? What am I drawn towards? And like, I still have it, but it's like freedom, investing, independence. And then, of course, like business and marketing and various other things. So it was like, from the get-go, I'm like, this is what's important to me. These are the things that I want in my life. So when you understand that those are the things that you need, you have to make decisions that align with that, or else you start this pathway towards building a life that you really don't want, and that you may end up either getting like the golden handcuffs where you're chained to this business you don't love, or at the end of the day, that's it. Like, there is only the journey. There is only today and what you're doing now, and making sure that you're on that journey of love. So bootstrapping, I think, was always important to us. We considered, like, we were on Shark Tank, so we clearly considered the idea of getting an investment, but it wasn't like something that we thought was automatic or something that we thought we had to do. If there was an opportunity that was really favorable to us and we could do it on our own terms, we would consider it. I think as entrepreneurs, it's kind of your responsibility to make considerations, all considerations. But, we didn't spend a lot of time and energy and resources in, trying to raise money or try to find financing. I've always believed the best way to grow a business is basically your customers finance your growth. And what that means is you have profitable products where you reinvest that profit into the company and you grow that way. And if you can minimize your needs and take as little out of the business as possible, especially in the early days, then you're able to grow through profits. And it's not easy, especially in e-commerce with physical products. It can be very challenging. And in America too, where they consider inventory to essentially be cash. So if you build up your inventory, you have to pay taxes on that. But that was important to us. So we would trade off rapid growth or maybe big ambitions in exchange for freedom. So the company has no debt. The company, I have my two business partners, but we have no other outside investors. So we get to serve our customers, purely our customers. And then, we operate our business where we pay off our bills every month. So we don't have I don't even have a line of credit at Beardbrand. 13 years in, we've been able to get to where we are without a line of credit. And, this is also a guilty admission, but we focus on cash-based accounting versus accrual-based accounting. So it's just like, we either have the cash or we don't. I'm pretty dumb when it comes to running the business. It's like, So there's very few companies that do it that way. And I think it's easy for an entrepreneur to get wrapped up into the dream, the destination, the big exit. And then that life is going to be perfect once you have that exit. And I don't really believe that to be true.
Yeah, and I really like that because it's very, very common to see someone in their direction and kind of take it as your own dream without really thinking if it's your dream and writing it down as you did. So what are maybe some of the recent decisions around the product, marketing, or team that reflect this? And I'm also interested in like comparison to when you started, like how these intentions modify the USPs or the overall perspective of growth that you've had.
Yeah, we started off, Beardbrand was a side project for me. And it was like, if we can make $1,000 or a couple $1,000 a month on the side, that's great. And then we saw traction and it grew. And then it was like, okay, well, this can be a full-time thing for me. I can wrap up that marketing business, that design business, and I can just focus on Beardbrand and, make some money and then, give some money to my partners. And then it continued to grow. And then it became, my business partner, she can be in it full-time as well. So both of us were in full-time. And then it became something, well, we can hire employees. And we did that. So we were flexible enough where, based on what was happening in the business, we kind of tweaked it. And based on our interest and our passion for it, we would kind of modify our perception of what we wanted out of the business. And me and my partners have always been great about meeting once a quarter away from the business to kind of reevaluate what we're working on, making sure it's important, making sure we still trust each other and we are still aligned with how we want to build the business, and that the business is delivering to us what we need it to deliver, as well as to the team members and really to the world and our customers. And then when it comes to products, like when I started Beardbrand, I didn't know that it was going to become a grooming company. I always visualized that it was going to be this lifestyle company. We'd be selling like clothes and apparel and bags and accessories for the for the urban beardsman. And, we tried that. And those products just didn't resonate with our customers like our grooming products did. So, that was listening to our customers in the sense of, the data I think is always the best communicator, like you do have to actually talk to your customers too, but those are always going to be kind of anecdotal, more for like the feel of things or for like deeper insights into how someone might use something. But the data is going to tell you what products they really want and what they don't. And then you got to listen to that and produce more of that.
That's amazing. And I always say that like the best direction or how you need to take the business in what kind of direction is just asking your customers and having that community and having that feedback, even like a simple customer survey that you can do and give them something in return. It gives you so much more data than just looking anywhere else, right? So I really like that. It kind of applies overall with every business. And also many brands really try to grow at all costs and push the products that even their customer isn't very interested in. And I really like you're more focus on the actual legacy, more focus on the actual lifestyle, and more focus on what the customer actually wants. So how do you make a brand so big? How do you communicate the DNA, what you stand for, to the new customers, especially those finding you online for the first time?
Yeah, I think it's challenging. I think, especially now, like as the founder, I have 13 and a half years of experience and memories and, videos that I've produced and emails that I've sent and, conversations that I've had. And it gets easy to forget that not all my customers have that same understanding of where we've been and what we've done and the decisions we've made. Of course, our longtime loyal customers who have been with us for years, they might understand that, but that's not the majority of your customers. So you do, to a certain degree, need to have this like insatiable desire to share the same message for a long period of time. And never forget to keep on telling it. Our tagline is keep on growing. I try to end all of our emails and keep on growing and try to like really enforce what our brand is. Having a tagline that like helps create that reminder. We have our core values, which are freedom, hunger, and trust. And that's a big part of how we run our business internally as well as externally and how we communicate with our customers. So, bringing those to the forefront. But it does, business sometimes interrupts that train of thought. Sometimes we're like, well, like I got payroll coming up, or, I got sued and I've got to pay for my lawyer, and like all these things is like I need to generate revenue so you're constantly being pulled every day. You're constantly being pulled away from your purpose and the reason why you exist in business. And it is your job as a leader within your organization to bring that branding back and make sure that that's the center of what you're doing. You need to make sure that you tell your team, this is our purpose. This is why we exist. You need to make sure you tell your customers, and you can't overtell. You cannot oversell. Like, you don't have to worry about it. If you share your brand message once too many, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's that constant challenge, and you need to be very delicate with how you focus on exactly staying in that balance of not overdoing it, but not underdoing it either, and forgetting what you're about.
But I mean, you think about like Nike, and I mean, everybody knows their tagline. Everybody knows their tagline. Just do it. You know why? Because it's everywhere. It's absolutely every message, every email, like every ad, they've got just do it on it. You cannot overdo your brand. Like, you cannot overdo the purpose and the reason you exist. And if people don't get it and they don't like it, they're not your customers. That's okay. But the people who do get it, they want to be reminded of that every day. They want to be reminded to keep on growing, to level up, to improve. And it's our responsibility as, stewards of the brand to make sure that we put that up to the forefront.
Absolutely. But you don't want to be sending 10 emails a day, just as a reminder.
Well, yeah. I mean, like the execution of how many marketing messages. I mean, I'd argue you should be sending 10 emails a day, just not to the same person.
Yeah, exactly. And you have such a strong organic presence doing that, right? Like you get, and this is what I love about really good brand building, because if you're omnipresent on most of the platforms and you're reminding people about yourself, but they're finding you, you're not forcing yourself on them, it just creates that trustability factor to the brand. Plus it reminds, it creates awareness because you're just everywhere, right? And you're especially strong on YouTube, right? And I'm very interested about these sorts of traffic and this channel for you. How are you currently converting that traffic into customers? Are there specific funnels or strategies you're using to turn specifically content into revenue?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really think about the way we produce content in that way. And maybe that's an opportunity for us. So I don't want to necessarily say what we should do should be mimicked or done. However, it kind of aligns with just how I want to run the business, which is like, let's make really cool content that we believe to be excellent content that our intended audience would enjoy watching. And when you do that, if there's a natural opportunity to integrate our products or to talk about our products, then to do that. But we want to, via our core value, trust, we want to develop trust with our audience. And you do that by being authentic and not like, oh, here's a funnel. We do, not to say we don't have funnels, but when we think about how we create organic content, the intent of creating the organic content is in a way that we produce something of value.
Yeah, so pretty much you have like very top of the funnel content, which you can then maybe retarget with some other channels.
Yeah, I mean, we have 2 YouTube channels. One YouTube channel is called the Beardbrand channel, and we call it our barbershop channel. So that's where we produce content of dudes getting a haircut and beard trim and showing the before and after transformation, as well as getting a reaction from a loved one. So there's a little bit of that, entertainment factor to it, and then there's the education aspect of it too, where people learn, they can find clients who look similar to them or have hair type similar to them, and they can take that to their barber. And then we have a smaller channel called the Beardbrand Alliance, which is more like a traditional beauty channel where we give tips and advice on how to care for your beard, how to care for your hair, and how to, just kind of like topics that are of interest to people who are into grooming. So that's a little less broad. That's a little more direct to our intended audience. And subsequently, that's a smaller content or a smaller channel and content exposure potential. But in theory, they should, and they do, effectively both channels kind of convert at the same route. We do a post-purchase survey with Grapevine reviews on Shopify. It's a great little plugin, and we ask how they first heard about us. And, YouTube is a big channel for us between our channel, our 2 channels, and then other YouTube content creators who we also work with.
So you're not running any YouTube ads like to support your current existing organic content?
Correct. The only paid advertising we're doing at the moment is on Meta through Facebook and Instagram.
Amazing. And this is why I love these post-purchase surveys, because you get such a good insight of where the people are coming from. And this is exactly why I also love the organic on top of it, because people learn about you. And then when they are in a need of buying something for grooming, let's say, they try to find you on YouTube, maybe try to search for you on Google, and then that's where you have some presence and pretty much people can find you and buy from you. But the initial contact is just that pure value that you're providing in there. So that's absolutely great. And of course, you have the other channels. You're running Meta and Google as a paid traffic. And,
no Google.
No Google, just Meta.
No, just Meta.
Just Meta. Okay, awesome. And I know that I believe we talked about this before the podcast as well, that you've had some dip after losing some retail partnerships, right? And you're trying to catch the wind again now. So what are the biggest challenges? Because of course there's highs and lows with every business. So what are you maybe facing as a challenge currently that you're trying to solve with customer acquisition? And how are you approaching this from a brand that is already established, but trying to get yourself kind of back on the horse?
Yeah, I mean, for those who aren't familiar with our story, a couple of years ago, we made a series of mistakes, strategic mistakes, and we also unfortunately lost a major retailer who was Target. In addition to that, they stiffed us by several $100,000. We got sued in an ADA lawsuit. We had everything that could go wrong, pretty much went wrong all at once. Strategically, from a marketing perspective, we consolidated our line to fewer fragrances. We consolidated some of our product offering, tweaked our manufacturing partners and our packaging. We did all this all at once. So, we're kind of flying blind in what was the thing that hurt us the most. Was it the packaging? Was it the consolidation of products? Was it the discontinuation of the fragrances? And at the end of the day, I have to kind of come to terms with the fact that I'll never know, but we've got to build things back up. So, for the past really like year and a half to 2 years, we've been in survival mode. So it's not thinking about how do we grow the company, what are the new products to launch, how do we grow new channels? It was like, how do we stay in business? How do we make sure that we don't have to fire all of our employees? How do we, make sure we have enough cash in the account? And, once we kind of got through that survival mode, really about, let's say about 6 months ago, and by we, I mean me, I've been able to like open up more on, like how do we get back to growth? And how do we get back to, seeing year-over-year growth rather than, year-over-year declines? And it's been exciting in a sense because it's been a long time thinking about that. When you start thinking about the future a little bit more, it is energizing. And I can tell you, over these past couple of years, there's been some like really dark days. I was just looking at my health app, and I've been tracking my weight pretty religiously over the past however many years. And, you can just see my weight just like dies. I'm one of those people when I get stressed out, like I don't eat and all that. So I lost like 20 pounds and then been able to get it back, so I'm kind of like at my normal weight. And then I've seen my weight over the past like 6 months steady out as like my stress has kind of gotten back to normal levels of stress. So it's been challenging. I do believe, organic content, which was a big part of how we grew, isn't something that we can necessarily depend on. So I do believe that meta and paid is how we need to think about and focus on growth. However, our market is very crowded. Acquiring customers is not cheap. So we have to think about how we can be prudent with the allocation of our scarce resources and try to drive up our, lifetime customer value through great experiences and how we can, create an environment where it's, almost expected that customers will buy a couple things rather than just a single item. So it's been real challenging, to be honest, and not one where I can fully claim to have done what I think we can do and what the potential is. So we continue to show up to work every day to figure out how to get it done.
Amazing. And I appreciate really you going into such dark places and sharing that with us, because this is what the business is all about. It's if it's high, it's a very high, and when it's low, it's quite a deep low. So this is when things go south, usually they go south all the way, and getting back from this is sometimes not even something you can do, right? So getting back on the horse and actually saving the business is, first of all, huge congrats on that, because of course it's not given, but also being able to mentally get through all of that is quite challenging. But I like it when you experience that kind of first wave of growth and it goes back down. You still have that kind of experiences and new strategies that emerge that you can always count on and do a new growth, just exploring what channels and what kind of strategies you can employ right now. And that leads me to basically the next part of let
me add on to that. For anybody who's going through this journey, I can tell you from an ego perspective, seeing your top line revenue go down in any kind of way is very humbling. You question your abilities as an entrepreneur, if you still got it, if the company's still worth it. But I want you to think about like, how far does it go down? Now, this may not be the case for, saying you're selling items that no longer are available or the market doesn't exist anymore, it's completely died out. I'm talking about if you theoretically believe that your product is still relevant in the marketplace, step back, look at it. It's gone down. But where it's at today, would you much rather come in and have this business at this level and try to build up from it versus throwing it all away and starting again from zero, and then maybe, or maybe not, ever getting to that same point? So for us, we kind of realize like we hit this point, like it's a brand new, let's look at this as a brand new business, fresh start. It's already doing this on day one, so yeah. I'm not doing zero on day one. I've got this floor that we're at, and we can still build it up from here. So rather than looking in the past and I'm like, our sales are down so much from what it used to be, I'm like, well, look where we are now and where we can take it. And I think that is going to be a very important way to reframe a negativity so you can continue to persevere and continue to build back the business to where the potential to be.
I 100% agree with this, because we as entrepreneurs, when something goes south, we're innovating, we're finding new ways, right? So we're always kind of drawn to starting something new, starting fresh. But if you position it this way, as you said, like starting from already a couple of tens or even 100 sales, it's amazing because you don't have to even try that product if it sells at least a couple of pieces, building a brand around it. You already have done all of that. So reframing it as a whole new business, new packaging obviously helps, but reframing it this way, it's amazing way to stay in business and kind of get that excitement again. And
or think about it like, okay, well, I just bought this new business and this is what it's doing. Here's how I can build it up from here. So
whatever.
Lots of different ways to kind of change that perception of what's going on versus just getting down on yourself, which also happens too.
Absolutely. And pretty much nowadays lots have changed from when you first scaled the brand, right? The e-commerce space is changing rapidly. How are you currently adapting to this new reality? Where do you yourself feel like most insecure or stretched in the marketing efforts?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when it comes to our marketing efforts, we've been doing this for 13 and a half years, and things work at different levels. And sometimes I believe it's less about how how Meta's working or Google's working or organic content's working, and more about like how energized the team is towards working on these projects. And I think like there comes like some ebbs and flows with your team that, my youngest tenured employees, like 5 years working with us. So like we've seen a lot of ups and downs, and, we've hit different parts with the business and different parts with our lives. And, like we have babies and families and things like that. So, like what are the passion points for the team members and how they might be able to execute on something? Because I do think there is a bit of like, you grind on something for a long period of time and you don't see the results from those efforts, that can be exhausting. So like sometimes there might need to be like a little bit of revitalization on the projects that team members are working on, positioned in a different way to make sure you're still like the wins are in the future, because what's that saying, like beatings will continue until morale improves. It's like sometimes business feels like that. It's just like beating after beating after beating. It's like, oh, you got to be happy. It's kind of hard to be happy,
Exactly. Yeah. So you have some strategies that you're working on. You're going in some new direction. Of course, this is a question that I love to ask towards the end. AI, big player right now. Everybody's talking about it. How are you leveraging AI with your day-to-day activities, with your marketing efforts? Like, how are you employing that in your business?
Yeah, I mean, I'm bullish on AI. I'm a big fan of it. I encourage my team members to use it any way possible, especially on the content creation. I had my art director. I have this like side project I'm working on, which is basically a story, not a dystopian, but like a science fiction story that's kind of built around our core values. And I want her to use AI to generate the characters in the model. So like to have an excuse and a purpose. I think, from a content creation standpoint, AI is going to be best utilized in unrealistic expectations. We have an ad. We make these beautiful cellulose acetate combs from Italian acetate, Mazzucchelli. Down in, but anyways, one of the comb's names is Unicorn Vomit. It's this colorful, like rainbow-like kind of chunky comb, and we used AI to generate a video of a unicorn vomiting. And it's like, well, there's no way I'm going to hire a horse and put a little horn on it and then somehow make it, like vomit. That would cost me tens of thousands of dollars or whatever it is. So we could use AI to produce something that isn't exactly the quality that I'd want it to be, but it's the point of diminishing returns. We've got this, it's kind of fun. So I want to use AI video creation in ways that are surreal. So we have like another one of like a baby talking. We've got another one of like our sea salt spray, a processing factory that involves like, shaking off the salt water from, seals or something. So it's just kind of like allow AI to explore creativity in ways that you might have been limited in the past. And that's going to be a big function from like a content production standpoint. I do think there's probably an analytical aspect to it that I haven't utilized. One way I'd like to figure out is how I might be able to use AI to better predict our inventory management and when we're going to be out of stock, and adjustments on a granular level based on what the sales are. I think that could be an opportunity that I haven't built out yet that I'd like to build out. But yeah, just kind of like AI slop from an ad perspective, but in a funny way. And then I don't want to do it to like replace the normal stuff. Like, so if we have a bearded guy applying beard oil, like that's a normal thing. That's not something that replaces, or, use real models, write real letters. It's so easy and it happens so quickly. I can, just like that, I can tell what emails come in have been created with AI. And it's just unreal how quickly that slop gets to determined by customers. So try to minimize that, especially when it comes to our brand voice, as much as possible.
I have the same experience with like AI doing the creative part, the images, the GIFs, the UGCs. It looks great. But with copy, I'm not even talking about the hyphens in between the words with ChatGPT. Yeah. But overall, in many cases, it doesn't sound like a normal human being. Like you can tell it apart straight away. So, but I really love the combination of like using the real creatives, some pretty much just photo shoots with design creatives with AI creatives. Like that's kind of combination. If you put one or two AI pieces in between these normal pieces, it blends in. It kind of disappears. So I really, really like that approach. And of course, the operational it works well when you find the right prompts. My last question would be, and this is also one of my favorites: what do you predict for the e-commerce market for the next 5 to 10 years? What do you predict would happen? How would the market change?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're only going to see continued growth. It's been really interesting to see the shake-up, of course, with the government lockdowns a few years ago and the boost that came from e-commerce from that. And then Temu and Shein, or whatever that was called, where in America we saw a flux of super cheap products. I would love to see some stability from, more of a logistic tariff kind of perspective. So like people can build around there. I think there's, you can't not look at what Amazon is doing and where they're going to take it. I don't know if we'll see a competitor come up to them at a massive level. My hope is that Shopify's Shop app could start to become that, or, maybe Walmart marketplaces might be able to come in and offer competitive aspect to Amazon. I don't think Amazon has been historically, I mean, they're a platform that can create an enormous amount of wealth, but I do think they know they've got a big stick and they're not afraid to swing it to sellers. And I feel like sometimes they direct it to the wrong sellers when they should maybe directing them to less scrupulous sellers. But that's a whole different conversation. So I just continue to see the advancement of online shopping, and then logistics will continue to improve. Fulfillment centers, there's a lot of automation coming into that, which will continue to drive down the cost of fulfillment. And then, just in time, robots and drones to be able to deliver stuff even quicker. It's going to be quite remarkable time over the next 5 to 10 years.
I'm looking forward to the drone delivery, like all of that 7 to 14 days disappearing and having.
Yeah, be careful what you ask for. I mean, I don't know if I want to have like little flying everywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be like having wasps everywhere all the time, unless they figure out how to make them a bit more silent. It's going to be convenient, but it's going to be inconvenient at the same time. So I'm curious.
Maybe I'm more cool with, like, in our neighborhood in Texas, we have little robots that the restaurants can put meals into, and they'll deliver them straight to people's houses.
I saw those, yeah.
So I'm okay with those little drones. There's just, it's just like another bicycle on the road or whatever that you avoid.
Yeah.
The flying drones, I feel like would not be fun to be around.
Yeah. Hopefully someone sees this and figures out some middle ground between those. Awesome. Appreciate your time, Eric. This was very, very educative. Thank you for sharing all of your stories, even those that maybe you don't really like to think about that much. I'm hoping that some people finding themselves in this situation will still benefit and see that there's always way to restart the existing business. And I'm hoping that maybe in a couple of years we'll talk about some new growth strategies that you implement in the meantime, and that leads to great growth.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me on. This was a great chat, and I hope your listeners enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. Speak to you soon.